modern fighter aircraft climbs into the air at great speed and is highly maneuverable. More powerful engines are constantly being provided, which permit rapid climb, great speed, and powerful maneuverability. Large forces have gone into making this possible. These forces affect not only the aircraft, but in certain circumstances, they are brought to play on the pilot. Methods of protection against them are constantly being developed. Sudden changes in speed or direction give rise to accelerative forces which may be so large as to affect bodily functions. Blackout is one of the results. Let us examine these forces and see how they act on the pilot. The simplest force the aircraft overcomes is gravity. Gravity, acting on a body, gives it weight. Flight is accomplished against gravity. If the aircraft fails, the modern pilot is protected against the acceleration of gravity by his parachute. Sudden increase in speed builds up a similar force. Your weight is forced back against the seat in a catapult takeoff. Protection against this force is provided by a cushion behind your head. Sudden decrease in speed also produces a large force. This arises in the gentle art of pranging. Your crash harness is provided to protect you against this force. Finally, a large force arises from sudden change of direction, as in maneuvering. This is called centrifugal force. It may cause you to black out. These three forces affect a body in the same manner. They determine its effective weight. For convenience, we measure them in terms of the force of gravity, or G. 1G equally 1 times gravity. You are withstanding 1G now, sitting in that chair. 1G gives you your normal weight. Under 5G, you and your aircraft weigh 5 times as much. Because of this fact, it has been possible to devise a simple instrument called the accelerometer for the measurement of G. It consists of a metal weight hanging on a spring. This spring lengthens as the weight becomes heavier under G. The change in spring length is calibrated in G units. At rest, it registers 1G due to the force of gravity. If 5G is produced during a turn, the metal becomes 5 times as heavy and 5 is registered. With the resumption of level flight, the pointer returns to 1G since gravity is still acting. This is an actual accelerometer. The direction in which the force acts in respect to both you and your aircraft is important. G, acting in a downward direction, is called positive. When it acts in the opposite direction, as in inverted flight, it is called negative. Likewise, centrifugal force, due to an inside turn, results in positive G, whereas an outside turn produces negative G. The G due to gravity and the G arising from maneuvers always combine to act as a single force. They are pooled according to their relative direction. The direction and amount of each decide the final effect. For instance, let us consider an inside vertical loop which gives rise to 1G positive from centrifugal force. At the top of the loop, gravity is acting in a negative direction. The resulting force, therefore, is plus 1G minus 1G equals 0G. You now have no effective weight and things float around in your aircraft. At the bottom of the loop, gravity acts in a positive direction. The resulting force now is plus 1G equals 2G positive. In a horizontal turn, the 1G of gravity is acted on at right angles by the centrifugal force. The resulting G now is equal to the resultant of these two forces according to the parallelogram. For example, in an 80-degree bank, you have 5G on you and your aircraft. Pulling back the stick of a modern aircraft may build up a centrifugal force many times the 1G of gravity. Let us see what determines the amount of G developed. First, centrifugal force is found to vary with the radius or tightness of the turn. For example, halving the radius and maintaining the speed, you turn in half the time, but the G is doubled. Thus, although one aircraft may develop 3G in a turn, another, turning on half the radius, is subjected to 6G. Second, centrifugal force varies enormously with your ASI reading. In fact, it varies as the square of the corrected airspeed. That means that in doubling your speed, you again get round in half the time, but the G is increased fourfold. So instead of 2G, you now must withstand 8G. It is clear, therefore, that the more G you can stand, the tighter and faster you can turn. Now, what is the effect of increased G on your aircraft? First of all, it makes it heavier. At 7G, its weight, and therefore its wing loading, is increased 7 times, and your fighter becomes as heavy as a 4-motored bomber. Since you still have the same wings and the same engine, the flying characteristics are naturally altered. The increased G affects your aircraft by increasing the weight, which in turn results in an increased stalling speed. You need much more speed to keep it from stalling. More precisely, at 4G you stall at twice, and at 9G at 3 times your normal stalling speed with flaps up. Of course, increased loading also increases the drag. To maintain your aircraft in a turn, therefore, more energy must be expended. You can provide this in 3 ways. 1, by opening your throttle. 2, by losing altitude. 3, by losing speed. Remember also that the safe wing loading of your plane is structurally limited. You should know to what G your particular aircraft can safely go. Ask your engineering officer about this. Although your aeroplane may withstand 7 positive G, negative G is somewhat different. Generally, aircraft are designed to withstand about half as much negative G, and for that matter, so are you. The gen on G can be studied in a maneuvering aircraft, but it is much more convenient and simple to do this in a centrifuge such as this one for pilots. With this apparatus housed on the ground, tests can be made in fair or foul weather. During a test run, the pilot sits in the car and is under continuous observation by the observer seated at the center. As we approach the opening from which the pilot is photographed during a run, the interior of the car becomes visible. Note the dummy control stick. The firing button is wired to the blackout indicator. There is a large-scale accelerometer to the right which measures the G. The car is freely suspended from the end of a rotating arm. The pilot is swung around in a circle by the machine, which is driven electrically. During a run, as seen in this view from the observer's seat, the car describes a properly banked turn as the G rises and falls. The G developed and the time it lasts can be varied accurately at will. This is done by means of an automatic cam control. Furthermore, the seat can be rotated. Any given aircraft maneuver can thus be simulated and accurately repeated to study its effect. Now, by means of the camera mounted at the front of the car, let us follow a pilot during a turn at 5G, lasting 5 seconds. As the G comes on, his features are drawn down. Like every part of him, they become 5 times as heavy. Notice the blanching of his face. As the G falls off, his features return to normal. See him blush. He's not really embarrassed. He just can't help it when the blood rushes back to his head. Just as in your aircraft increases in weight during a turn, you also gain in weight. For example, a pilot whose normal weight is 170 pounds weighs well over half a ton at 7G. The healthy human frame is well able to support this when seated, but the blood actually becomes as heavy as iron. It is not surprising, therefore, that the most important effect of G on the pilot is due to the action of centrifugal force on the circulation of the blood. By means of the following diagrams, let us first see how the blood circulates in your insides in level flight, that is to say, under 1G. Normally the heart pumps fresh blood, which contains oxygen, rapidly and under pressure through the arteries to all parts of the body. In the organs, the oxygen is delivered up by the blood. Then, through the thin-walled veins, the used blood is returned slowly and under a low pressure. This pressure is just adequate to push it up from the lower parts of the body against the force of gravity. On reaching the heart, it is pumped through the lungs. Here, the blood takes up a new supply of oxygen before it is again pumped out to the body. This is the normal circulation. During level flight, gravity acts in a downward direction on the circulating blood. Consequently, the 1G interferes chiefly with the uphill flow of the blood in the soft wall veins back to the heart, and, to a lesser extent, with that from the heart to the head. In the aircraft, during a turn or pull-up, as the G increases, the increased weight of the blood drives it downwards, where it tends to pull in the legs and belly, and here the soft wall veins stretch under their increased load. As a result, the return flow of blood to the heart slows up. Although it is strong enough to pump blood which is heavier than normal, the heart, like any other pump, can deliver only the blood it receives. The circulation to the head, therefore, is decreased as the pump tends to run dry. This cutting down of the vital oxygen supply to the brain, when repeated, causes the fatigue which may follow frequent, close maneuvering. If the turn is prolonged, or if it is excessively tight, the senses begin to fail. First, sight fades, leading to blackout. Hearing becomes distant, and finally consciousness may be lost altogether. Summarized, the progressive effects of increased G on the pilot are slowed reaction time, gray out, blackout, loss of hearing, and finally, loss of consciousness. Why do they occur in that order? Loss of vision or blackout is caused by a failure of circulation of blood through the eye. The eye may be compared to a blown-up football with an internal fluid pressure to keep it rigid. This internal pressure is a natural obstruction to the flow of blood to the light-sensitive parts. Normally, the blood pressure overcomes this internal resistance with ease, and so the vital oxygen necessary for sight is supplied. When, however, the blood pressure falls under G, the internal pressure of the eye begins to collapse the tiny vessels. This slows up the blood flow, oxygen runs short, and vision is grayed. At 5G, the blood pressure may fall too low to force any blood through the eye. This results in complete failure of vision or blackout. However, some blood can still enter the brain where there is no internal pressure to obstruct the flow. In this way, consciousness is maintained even after vision has failed. If the G is increased still more, the blood pressure may fall too low to supply even the brain with oxygen. Hearing fades, and the pilot becomes groggy. Finally, his consciousness may lapse altogether, and dreams may plague and bewilder him. As the G passes off, the blood again reaches the heart, the blood pressure rises, and the oxygen supply to the head is restored. With this return to a normal circulation, the sequence of blackout is reversed, but a short period of confusion may follow. Because the blood has inertia and requires time to get it moving, it takes time for these changes to occur. Blackout does not come on until the blood has had time to pool in the veins. You do not black out, therefore, until a few seconds after you have entered a turn. Similarly, blackout may be prolonged slightly after coming out of the turn. The G level at which your vision fails is called your blackout threshold. You get to know it by noting during a maneuver at what level of G your vision starts to fail. This threshold varies from one man to another, as shown by the following 3 actual runs in the centrifuge. 5G lasting 5 seconds produces unconsciousness in one man. His G threshold has been well exceeded. The same run is sub-threshold in another man. He's okay. But in a third pilot, blackout is produced. His G threshold, by the way, is about average, namely 5G for 5 seconds. The G at which you black out will also vary with the rate at which the G comes on. A high value of G, acting for a short time, may produce fewer symptoms than a lower value of G, acting for a longer time. It takes time to produce blackout. But don't forget, snap pullouts can be dangerous to your aircraft. Your blackout threshold will be lowered by whatever makes you less fit to fly. This includes failure to use your oxygen. Proper use is doubly important during maneuvers. Flying on an empty stomach. It pays to eat your breakfast. Did you say breakfast? Lack of exercise, and particularly lack of sleep. Your off time is valuable. Don't waste it with too late hours, too many beers, too much tobacco, and too many other interests. Tensing your muscles during maneuver raises your blackout threshold, since tensing prevents the pooling of blood in your belly. The better your physical condition, the more effective this will be. It pays to keep fit. So far, we have considered positive G only. Pushing forward the stick produces negative G, which lifts you out of the seat. Again, in the centrifuge, by rotating the seat, we can see how negative G affects a pilot. As the run starts, the blood is forced into the head, causing congestion of the face. You feel pop-eyed. There is a rather distressing feeling of belly uplift. Negative G has a more severe effect on the pilot than positive G. At 3G negative, spots may appear before the eyes, and red out of vision may occur. However, your negative G tolerance can be increased somewhat by careful, graded practice. It has been found that exposure to negative G leaves your blood vessels relaxed for a few seconds, so that blood will pool more readily during positive G in a subsequent pull-up. For example, if you have to drop your nose in a dive, the negative G leaves you more susceptible to blackout in a following pull-up. By waiting a few seconds, the tendency to blackout passes off. Your ability to withstand positive G can be increased in several ways. One is by changing your position in the aircraft. Obviously, standing is the worst position because the blood must travel a long way against G from feet to head. This is indicated by the longest arrow. On the other hand, if you lie down, G does not oppose the flow of blood, but lying down, offers difficulties. Crouching forward is a compromise. It reduces the vertical distance from heart to head, making it easier to pump the blood to the brain. By crouching, you also increase the pressure on your belly, which squeezes the blood back to the heart. Shifting your feet to the raised rudder pedals also raises your threshold. The vertical distance from feet to heart is reduced, and the return flow of blood is aided. However, you must remember to shift your pedals before the maneuver is begun, otherwise your feet will be too heavy. Although crouching raises your blackout threshold, the position under G is hard on your back, and it is difficult to see with your head down. Since both fatigue and blackout result from pulling of the blood, they can be prevented if the veins are not allowed to expand under G. One obvious way to prevent pulling is to oppose the increasing pressure in the blood column with an equal and opposite force around the body. Let us see what happens to our pilot when this is done. Supposing we put a bathtub around him and open the tap. As the water fills the tub, the veins dilated by G are compressed to their normal size. Pulling, due to G, is now prevented, and the heart receives enough blood to pump to the head. The brain is again well supplied with oxygen, consciousness is restored, and vision returns. Our pilot can now maneuver his bath fire with relative ease and little fatigue. Eureka! Like Archimedes, the difficulty is solved in the bathtub. In a water tower, pressure increases with depth. For this reason, the supporting rings are closer together toward the bottom where they are most needed. The same applies here. The pressure of the water against the body increases with depth. This balances the increased weight of the blood columns as they lengthen down the body. Under increased G, the water gains in weight just as does the blood. The balance is still maintained. As a result, the G effect is automatically counteracted at all levels as the G rises and falls. Experience has shown that for protection against such G as modern aircraft can safely stand, the fluid level may be dropped to heart level. The heart is well able to maintain the pressure head necessary for circulation, provided the blood is returned up to it. Further, the fluid pressure remains the same even though the water is reduced to a thin layer around the pilot. A suit based on these principles has been designed for you. It is called the Franks Flying Suit, or FFS. The fluid layer is contained in a rubber interlining. As you see, it need not cover the entire body surface for the reason that the pressure exerted by the water under G is transmitted to the rest of the body by the non-stretchable outer covering. Suitably graded air pressure may be used in place of the water. Here is a pilot wearing a suit in which water is used. This is the Mark III FFS. It consists of an outer, close-fitting, flexible cover made from a special fabric woven to give minimum stretch. This shows how the rubber interlining covers only part of the body. Let us see the effect of the FFS as a protection against G. First, without the FFS, we measure this pilot's blackout threshold by a centrifuge test. A run of 5.5 G for 5 seconds. That's the dose he gets. Can he take it without protection? No. There he goes. Out. Black. Whew. Damn. But wearing the FFS, filled properly with water, so protected, he can now take the same 5.5 G for 5 seconds with ease. Watch that accelerometer. And during such a run, tests have shown that his reaction time is not prolonged, nor is he unduly bothered by fatigue. Quite a useful difference, don't you think? Now, let's try him with a spot more G, say 7.5, which is well up to the safety limit of most fighter aircraft. He's taking that too. He may look a bit down on the mouth, for at this G his weight is over half a ton. But you must admit that he's a good weight carrier and has caught up to the limit of his kite. As you see, the protective action of the suit is automatic. The pilot's attention is free for his duties throughout the maneuver. Since the suit is cut to fit you accurately when seated in an aircraft, the support it affords makes it deceivingly comfortable. You zip in and out of it as in any other flying clothing. To put it on, first fully undo all zips. Step into it and pull the braces over your shoulders. Now pick up the bib front and shift each brace from the side to its bib hook. You unfasten the hooks by flexing forward as shown. After dressing on the left, this chap seems to have a little difficulty with this item. Tighten the shoulder straps until the suit is as far up in the crutch as possible. Then do up the hip hooks on either side of the body like this, and zip the body halfway up. Close both legs. Put on your trousers, shoes, and tunic. Tighten your straps, and you're dressed to fly. Your suit is filled with water from a bag while seated in the aircraft. Use warm water in cold weather, or cold water on warm days. Your rigger will look after this. Be sure that the suit is well filled and that it is well up on you. Raise yourself slightly so that the water can pass into the back while running in. Filling should take about 40 seconds. A full advantage is obtained from the suit only when it is well filled. But do not fill it so full as to interfere with breathing. You soon learn what is your particular amount. After landing, the water may be drained back into the bag through the leg valves. Remember that the water in your suit may come in handy for drinking if you come down in the desert or in the undrinkable drink. Do keep it clean. The FFS is a personal issue. It's made in 7 sizes. It is worn close to the body on top of the underwear and socks, and underneath your regular flying clothes. Before one is issued to you, your girth and leg measurements are taken, using the special measuring tape provided. From the measurements on the tape, your size is got. There is a length adjustment between the body and each leg, and adjustments for circumference. You zip in and out of the suit, but before it is first used in flight, it must be adjusted by lacing to fit you snugly, after which it doesn't need to be laced again. The lacing is done in the sitting position that you take in your aircraft. Lace up each leg, stopping at the knee for the time being. Undo the leg zip and pull the lining inwards to remove any wrinkles in the fabric under the lacing. then re-zip. Next, undo the single lace at the side of each thigh and turn down the upper part of each leg. This exposes the length adjustment of the thigh. At this point, tighten the shoulder straps so the suit is well up in the crutch. For comfort, the shoulder strap buckle should come below, not on the collarbone. The back adjustment makes this possible. Now lace each side of the body up to the waist, starting at the thigh. This fixes the body up in position. Now, with the body and the legs fixed, adjust the thigh length. Start at the outside, working around underneath to the inside. Do this with the knee bent as shown. Smooth out the free edges of the body fabric underneath the length adjustment, particularly behind. Replace the leg top previously turned down and finish the girth adjustment of each leg to the top while the knee is bent. Tie off the leg and single side laces as shown. Always use reef knots. Zip up the body and finish lacing both sides to the top. Don't make it so tight that your breathing is restricted. However, it should be snug on you, but nowhere tight enough to interfere with circulation. Cut off the excess laces, but leave a bit for future adjustments. Weave these ends back neatly out of the way. The lacing must lie flat, free from twists. Lastly, pull up the outer cover over the thigh length adjustment, particularly behind. Try sitting on your heels to test the thigh tightness and to stretch the lacing into place. The suit molds itself to your body with wear, and minor adjustments can be made at your own discretion. You should be able to step into most aircraft with relative ease. Otherwise, the knee or length adjustment is too tight. Like new shoes, the suit feels strange at first, but becomes friendly with use. Before flying, your suit must be well up, or it will ride behind your knees. It will restrict your movement. It requires a greater volume to fill, and the lower water level gives less protection. You can see how critical the level of a thin water layer is by this simple means. Note how the level of water falls when the glass is moved down slightly. Your suit will be of little value to you if you do not treat it with care. Hang it up. A puncture of the interlining resulting in loss of water, or careless cigarette burns of the outer fabric may make it fail. Report any damage at once for repairs. You may sweat with the suit on, particularly until you become accustomed to it. So don't forget to hang it up to air when not in use, and change your underwear often. Remember also to drain it well, otherwise it may be difficult to put on next time. While at readiness, you can zip your suit open for comfort according to the climate, such as in the tropics while wearing shorts, or with regular battle dress. The full benefit of the suit is only realized after a few hours in flight. We can actually see the effect of the suit in an aircraft under G by fitting a camera on the floor. First, without protection, during a spiral dive developing 5G, as shown by the large accelerometer at the side, this chap blacks out. He certainly seems to take a dim view of things. Now see the difference the FFS makes. There they are, properly serviced. Off they go. Now, during a similar maneuver, in which over 6G is produced, see him smile. He doesn't mind the G. In fact, he seems to like it. The suit is designed to carry the G load for you. But since your head and arms are not covered, you sense their increase in weight as usual during the turn. This should enable you to retain a feeling of the G you are developing. While getting used to the FFS in flight, you learn to judge the G of your turn by checking on the accelerometer. Don't forget, the suit protects you, but not your aircraft. Training should be carried out at a minimum height of 8,000 feet and a few recoveries from high-speed stalls practiced. Remember, the 5G is equivalent to an added bomb load of 4 times the weight of your aircraft. No wonder you have to keep moving under G if you are to avoid stalling. High-speed stalls low down offer little future. Remember the following points about turning. If your opponent is traveling at about your speed, you can turn inside him by withstanding more G. But if you are traveling much faster than he is, he may turn inside you at his lower speed and yet build up less G. The fastest way to turn is to reduce your speed and pile on the G, using your throttle to prevent loss of altitude. But you must balance your fall in speed against the rising tendency to stall. Holding 5G in a Spitfire, you will stall if the speed drops below 200 miles an hour. Furthermore, the tendency to stall is increased at altitude and in aircraft with higher wing loading. Your suit enables you to be wide awake during such critical maneuvers. If Jerry follows you around, however, he'll probably be pretty groggy. If you wish to exploit evasively your ability to withstand high G, the best method is to go into a tight spiral dive, which the enemy will be unable to follow. But remember that in doing this, you will be throwing away all your height advantage. Your ability to withstand more than 5G should be looked upon as a trump card up your sleeve. So don't subject yourself or your aircraft to unnecessary high G, any more than you would think of using 16-pound boost. Keep both for emergencies. Without the suit, the plane has the edge on you. Wearing it, you can pull round as tight as your new kite. And there you are, hot in position. The FFS gives you an advantage over the enemy. But remember the requirement of secrecy. Keep this Superman guessing.